Kristen Kraft,
Here.
Craig Gerlach, Justin Herder,
Here.
Richard Merton,
Here.
Linnea Miller,
Here.
Gordon Shallow, Charles Spargo.
Here.
Open meeting certification, the October 19th, 2020 meeting of the Mid-State Technical College Board of Directors and all other meetings of the board and or its committees is open to the public in compliance with state statutes. Notice of this meeting has been sent to news media and designated persons in an attempt to make citizens of the Mid-State Technical District aware of the place, time, and agenda of the meeting. This is open forum. Do we have anybody for open forum? This is an opportunity. Well, it's an opportunity for somebody to present at the board if they would like. It's not a public hearing. Person who wishes that the board make a statement as long as it pertains to a specific agenda item. Individuals should not expect to engage in discussion with members of the district board chairperson may or may not respond. September board minutes, we need a motion to approve.
Chuck has a question.
I have a small correction to suggest on the board notes. On the approval of procurements. Each two of the notes, it says there were no procurements which required approval, but then right below that, we did have a procurement that required approval. So there's just a sentence that needs to be struck on approve the following procurements for goods and services, and right below it is a sentence that I think should be struck.
You are correct, Chuck.
Is there a second?
I'll second, Mr. Justin.
If there are no other corrections or adjustments, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Need a motion on consent agenda items.
Our questions were answered by Greg in the finance department, so I'd make a motion to approve the consent agenda items.
Is there a second?
Linnea, second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Robert Beaver,
Yes.
Betty Brusky Malik, Betty, Kristen Kraft,
Yes.
Justin Herder,
Yes.
Richard Merton,
Yes.
Linnea Miller,
Yes.
Charles Spargo.
Yes,
Did we lose Betty somehow?
she's muted.
Oh,
Muted.
all right. Chairperson's report. Well, welcome to the meeting to folks that made it. Gordy and Craig asked to be excused. Craig might make part of it, I understand. Fall Boards Association is this coming Friday. It's going to feature Nicollet College, Perception of Technical College, Graduate Outcomes, and the Marketing Course Consortium. It'll be in the the board meeting is going to be in the afternoon. That's for Betty. The rest of us is going to be basically in the morning. And I think Steve's got that information out that you can get now off the website. ACCT Leadership Congress. It was held virtually from October 5th to the 8th. Some of us didn't get organized time-wise to see the presentation, but I didn't pay attention that it was Eastern time and Central time. So I missed. I'm sitting there wondering, where in the devil is this thing? Anyhow, I have had good, almost all the board chairs when we met Friday with Steve had heard it and got great compliments on it, great feedback. So it was great. I'm glad to hear that. It's good for the college. It's good for everybody. So I don't know if you had any other comments, Shelley, but it certainly was good.
You know, Bob, thank you. No, it was really good. It was a lot of work. I will tell you that. Marketing did an outstanding job working with our staff and the Aspira staff and the Legacy staff, but we did get kudos, and I think we really did represent the college well, and so I was very pleased. I'm glad that you got some kudos as well.
I'm glad. Yeah, they did have to work hard. They even had to come down and try to get an old guy to speak well into that thing, so good for them.
You did a good job, Bob.
Thanks. Good for them. The next meeting date will be November 16th. Hopefully we can be live in Rapids. I seriously doubt that. But if we do, we can have committee meetings at 4:15, committee at the whole at 5, regular meeting at 5:20. Or any other comments? If not, Shelley's on.
Thanks, Bob. So just a couple things under campus activities. Due to COVID, I just wanted you to know that we continue to adjust events, activities really on a weekly basis, trying to make the best decision where sometimes we're having a virtual option, sometimes we're just canceling, sometimes we're able to adjust. And Mandy is going to talk through something that we adjusted. I thought it was a great example. Our program showcase, where we bring our juniors and seniors typically all to our campus, and we're not able to do that right now. So we're going to do something called our tailgate tour that's happening tomorrow. And of course, I don't know if the weather is going to cooperate with us, but I'm going to let Mandy tell you about those details. But I also want her to share with you our decision that we've made regarding our December graduation, because you know, we really have to begin planning that. And as you know, we had to postpone our spring graduation, but I think that we have come up with something that we can be proud of. And Mandy, can you speak to that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Shelley. We have our fall 2020 and our spring 2020 graduation scheduled for December 13th. You might remember that we postponed our spring graduation back in May, and we have decided to move forward with an outdoor drive-in style graduation for both semesters. It's definitely something that will be unique and memorable for our students. The ceremony for spring 2020 graduates will be held at 4 o'clock that day, and the ceremony for December grads will be at 6 o'clock. And we're hosting two because the feedback came from our spring grads that they would really like a separate ceremony, and we wanted to honor that feedback. So both of the ceremonies will have some of the traditional pomp and circumstance of our usual ceremony, and they'll also be modified to plan for possible, likely maybe inclement weather. But the ceremony will be shorter with a few people on stage and kind of under a tent, with heaters, with large screens then on each side of the stage. And then graduates will watch from the warmth of their cars, and then they will get out only to really walk across the stage to receive their diploma. And then we'll have the campus really decorated nicely in a winter theme, and we'll offer decorated spaces for really photo opportunities for students as well. So more to come on that, but I think it'll really be a great event.
Sounds fabulous. Sounds fabulous.
Hey, Mandy,
Yeah.
We can hear you, Betty.
how are you including the families that want to watch their students graduate or their children graduate?
Yeah, good question. They will also be able to, each student will have their car, probably with somebody driving for them so they can get out and walk across the stage. But then they'll also be able to have a guest car watching from the parking lot. And then we will be streaming the ceremony as well.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you,
Any other
Mandy.
questions? Thanks.
From a community involvement standpoint, we have been working for about a year and a half with our fire and EMS agencies and law enforcement regarding some opportunities and some gaps that they had mentioned when I had came on board. And I can tell you that we are really close to having some partnership with the Marshfield Fire Department along with the Stevens Point Fire Department, being able to utilize some of their space where they currently do their training. And it's really kind of a continuation of what we what we should have been doing in Marshfield. So we're going to talk more about that in the future, but in case you get wind that we're just having some conversation, we definitely are, and really good conversation. So really proud of the staff with that. From a board policy standpoint, you will notice at the back of your packet, there are about 11 different board policies. I would just ask you to please look at them. If there is any suggestions that you would like to make to me, please just drop me an email, and I am doing the same. And we really have taken what Rick had mentioned last month to heart. We really are trying to look at board policies as a whole and trying to really put that positive tone on there. So I think you will just really notice that when we bring them back all for approval next month. So I really appreciate that comment that you had made, Rick. For the next part under my president's report, I have the alumni of the year. Wanted to share that we were able to celebrate our pick last week on October 15th. So sorry, Betty, that it did not work out that you were able to be there, but the District Boards Association was also part of our celebration because our alumni of the year that Midstate named, which is a gentleman by the name of Mr. Wayne Bushman. You probably have heard that name before. There is 5 criteria that we use to be able to select an alumni of the year, and he met all of them, so we were very proud to be able to give him that award. And then his name goes in to compete with the other 15 nominees from the other colleges, and we were so happy to hear that he won the state alumni of the year, as well as a gentleman from Moraine Park. So apparently there were 2 people this year that they really felt they really couldn't decide between the 2, and they gave 2 of them the award. But wow, what a testament, because when you think of over the past few years, we have been so fortunate to have our alumni also be able to win at the state level. So very proud of that. I think that shows we're picking some outstanding graduates. So with that, I already had made mention about the Leadership Congress. I wanted to just again say a thank you to everybody who put that wonderful presentation together, and did want to give Bob some kudos of representing you as the board. He did do an outstanding job, and I did send the link to all of you. So if you have not been able to see it, feel free to go out there. It is a little over a half hour, but you'll be able to scroll forward or go backward. But I did receive a number of comments from you, so I know you did watch it. So thank you for that. From a WTCS update standpoint, please know that we continue to work on the ask of what the WTCS is going to be asking the legislature for the next 2-year budget, and wanted to just give you some high-level information. So we very much do feel in times that we are in right now, we do need to ask for some additional dollars. We are asking for $26 million over the 2-year period. So looking to have about $13 million each year that would be able to use to be able to offer short-term post-secondary credentials, more of that shorter term, 6-month, 1-year training versus 2-year. And in addition to that, we are taking the risk to go out and ask for removal of some state statute where we would be able to offer Associate of Arts and Associate of Science degrees. So really offering the liberal studies associate degrees that right now we have with one of the 5 colleges of the 16 colleges that offer that. We feel that if we don't ask for additional dollars, then we really can't show why we have this need. We don't probably believe we may get those dollars, but we feel that we can substantiate the need, and therefore we need to ask. In addition to that, there is some regulatory relief that the system office is going to ask for, some reporting things that they have to do that they feel is done in a different way. In addition to asking the legislature for $100,000 to upgrade a fire science software that the office uses to really keep track of all the fire training that we do in the system. So just so in case you start hearing about, gosh, what is WTCS going to ask for of the governor in the budget, $26 million, some regulatory relief, and some money to help the system office with some software. Just wanted to kind of give you some high level, and I'm sure that Layla will be talking about that, through some district boards. And then from President's Association, you would probably guess the themes we all are talking about. We're talking about enrollment, we're talking about COVID, we're talking about diversity, equity, inclusion, which Karen's going to talk to you about tonight, and just again how we're trying to survive this national pandemic that is happening. We are having the monthly meetings. Our next president's meeting is actually tomorrow, Wednesday afternoon from 1 to 4. So I will be able to report out more of the details next month. That would end my president's report, Bob.
Okay, Chuck, you're up with finance.
Okay. We've already addressed the consent agenda items, so I'll move on to the treasurer's report. You see on page 17, the budget modifications. They're not very significant, mostly adjustments reflecting carry forward from one budget year to another. So it's a total revenue impact of minus $11,290, an expense impact of minus $1,000, and a total fund balance impact of $10,283 negative. Going on to the next page, it would be 18. This shows the current budget for fiscal year 2021, factoring in the modifications that we just covered on the prior page. So in terms of revenues, expenditures, very little change because those modifications are relatively small. I want to point out, though, the next section is different. And this leads to an issue that occurred with me a couple months ago. I made a comment on the fund equity, and I thought we had a positive increase, a balance increase. And I found I'm learning more and more every month, and Greg has been very gracious to help me understand a little better. But I've asked for a little bit of a change in this bottom section. Previously, it said estimated fund equity as of 6/30/20, and I got confused because I was expecting that to be the budget numbers. So in the sheet that you have today, Greg put in budgeted fund equity as of 6/30/20. And I also learned that what we were given in the special budget meeting in May, which looked like this format is not in the actual budget book that the board approved. And in the interim period from May, when the special meeting occurred, changes happened with regard to fund equity so that the final budget fund equity was different than what was anticipated to be the year end. So the bottom line is that on this page, right now it's showing budgeted fund equity as of June 30th that was budgeted, not anticipated of what we're going to end with. So the modifications for the budget reflect the budget changes on the budgeted fund equity, not the way we think fund equity is going to end 6/30/20. I have been working on trying to intelligently put together more questions for Greg. I hesitate to bother him a lot because he's got his hands full with staff being down a couple of folks in the finance department. So my education is going to take place over a longer period of time, and I'll share with you as it's appropriate. The next page shows the accrued revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund equity current actuals for the fiscal year 2021. This shows what we're actually receiving in revenues and spending year to date. Just a couple things to point out. For the month of September, we recognized $2.7 million in revenue. Most of that was in a financial aid, 1.4 million there. We've received roughly 19% of our revenue, received or recognized 19% of our revenue for the year to date. That's a little bit behind our expenditures. The revenue tends to be lumpy, as we've talked about before. The expenditures are going along as expected. We've got 1/4 of the year complete, and you can see that we've spent 24.7% of our budget so far. So we're right on target there. And specifically in the category that is The larger one, we have more control over Fund 1, where exactly 25% of the budget having been expended there. The biggest increase there is in salaries and wages and benefits, a $2 million increase there. And of course, we received financial aid revenue and we expended financial aid revenue in the expenditure section, roughly 1.6 million. That's probably the largest expenditure other than wages and benefits. And then we've also had some about $1 million of capital outlay. So for the month, our expenditures exceeded revenue by 3.5 million. For the year, we're about $4.5 million of expenditures over revenue. Of course, next month, we should receive some tax revenue for debt service. So we'll see an injection in funds there. Year-to-date fund equity in Fund 1 has dropped because we're spending more than we're earning in that fund category. But in other categories, we're much closer to the target. Overall, I think we're doing quite well. We've got the proceeds from debt to help cushion the financial cash flow there, so we're doing okay. And the next page on the balance sheet, page 20, shows that we've got $21.5 million in cash and investments, which represents about 75% of the maximum which occurred in February of 2017. That's it for the financial report. Any questions on that before I move on? Okay, then the next item on our agenda is the certification of the 2021 tax levy. You see in Exhibit I and some pages following it, the data on that. We're required by the end of October to certify the tax levy for the current fiscal year and to notify the 97 municipalities of their pro rata share of our tax levy. Each municipal's tax share is proportioned by the equalized values that are certified by the Department of Revenue. Exhibit I contains the details regarding Mid-State's levy and property valuation and the resulting mill rates, along with valuation changes by property classification, distribution by county, and value changes by tax increment districts, and a district board resolution certifying the property tax levy, which is shown in Exhibit I. If there's any questions you have on that, I understand Greg's in the room to address them.
I do have one request again. I know if Greg can do it, usually points regarding the levy. Could we get those again? I know we don't meet a lot of public, but should I get a phone call? Can we get a comparison of what our talking points should be for this year?
Certainly. Actually, Angie has a copy of those and can send.
That would be great. Thank you.
Welcome.
If there are no other questions, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the motion as shown in Exhibit I, the 2020-2021 tax levy certification resolution.
Is there a second?
I'll second. This is Betty.
Are there any other questions or comments? If not, roll call, please.
Robert Beaver,
Yes.
Eddie Brusky Malik,
Yes.
Kristen Krass,
Yes.
Justin Herder,
Yes.
Richard Merton,
Yes.
Linnea Miller,
Yes.
Charles Spargo,
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay.
Next is annual procurement report by Mr. Snyder.
Is Matt available?
I am. Sorry, Chuck. I just had to unmute myself there. It took just about a second. Good evening. Every year, we're required to develop the annual procurement report for the WTCS. It consists of expenditures not exceeding $50,000 that, when grouped together by vendor, exceed $50,000. We do this every year, and it needs to be approved by our district board. This year, we put it together. We have 10 different vendors on there. They kind of break down into 4 different categories. Half of the list, 5 of them, are contractors of various trades: electrical, general, mechanical, plumbing, and then we also have a flooring retailer in there as well. That in and of itself occurred largely because of a lot of the classroom remodels we did last summer. We acted as our own construction administrator. We developed the scope of work. We didn't involve an architect in the design because it was mostly cosmetic: flooring, walls, lights, ceilings, general scope of work that you could give to contractors and let them do. The amount of work and the architectural fees that would have been associated with it would have cost tens of thousands of dollars in design fees, which we saved as a college. The downside of that is, instead of paying one general contractor, you're the general contractor, so you're paying each of the subs, and those incremental payments can exceed $50,000. And so we've had 5 of the vendors on this list being contractors made that list. So that one's probably an anomaly, in that we're trying to, in the larger projects that we're doing, definitely use the architectural services. And so you'll have one general contract, and you won't have individual payments to plumbers and electricians and all of that. Another group that was in here was all academic equipment, largely in the T&I division. There was a A-Line Machine Tool, Staley Precision Corp, and Mississippi Welder Supply. Those are kind of anomalies. We get those every so often, where we'll buy certain pieces of equipment from a particular vendor, maybe 2 $30,000 pieces of equipment, which pushes them into this category, but those are sporadic. They don't happen annually. So none of these vendors were on the list last year and aren't likely to be on the list again in subsequent years, unless we end up going with another, several pieces of equipment from Staley. The other 2 categories that are a little more something that we need to dig into. One is Fast Signs. They are a company that we lean heavily on to create like the room signs. Outside of every room, there'll be, outside of my office here, it's T122. Anytime we do a remodel, we re-sign, and then we also do a lot of wayfinding and things of that sort. Some sort of displays that we put in the college to make it more aesthetically pleasing. We've leaned heavily on Fast Signs, and they've made that list for the first time. I take that back. They were on it last year as well. So the effort that the college is going to be making is to extend out to other vendors and try to secure, for the purposes of making sure we're getting the best pricing. When you lean too heavily on one vendor and you see how much you're spending with them, that's when you realize, okay, we probably need to test the waters and make sure that we're getting the best pricing. Fast Signs very well could make it onto this list again if they keep coming in as the lowest bidder. But when we're spending $71,000 with them, we're going to ensure in this current fiscal year that we're getting competitive pricing, just to make sure that we're doing the right thing by the college. The last group, or the last vendor in this group, that 4th category, was Quality Resource Group, QRG for short. They just barely made it over at $52,000. Those are actually somewhat COVID related. We had a lot of face masks created with the Mid-State logo on them to kind of give to students. That itself, that one expenditure, from memory, I think it was like $11 or so. It was quite a few face masks, and there were some other things associated with that as well. That pushed them into that category. They actually were on the list last year too. So this is another one that we're going to need to take a look at and maybe start securing more competitive pricing as we go forward, just to make sure that we're doing the best, getting the best pricing and spending the college's money most efficiently and best. So that essentially is a summary of the report. 4 groups of vendors. Half the list was contractors. Again, for the sake of us being the general contractor, that's kind of how it panned out. 2 of them really are actionable, which are Fast Signs and QRG, which we're looking into now that we've created this report going forward throughout the course of this fiscal year to make sure that we're getting, competitive pricing and making sure that we're getting the best prices for the college. This is something that, again, the district board needs to approve for sending on to the system level. Are there any questions on any of these?
I'm just gonna ask you that, Matt, if we needed to prove it, and you just answered it for me.
Yes.
We need a motion.
Chuck, did you have a question?
Did we get a copy of it? Because I don't have a copy of any of that in my packet.
Yeah, I didn't see it either. I'm guessing we didn't get it this time. We usually have gotten that.
Yeah, this is one I think I got to Angie probably a little bit late before she sent out the agenda.
Okay,
We can get a copy for sure.
Thank you.
In fact,
So
well, go ahead.
should we approve it if we don't have a copy of it?
well, he's given us the report on it, and we need to get it to the district board by the end of the month.
That is correct, yes.
We need a motion then, Chuck.
Also move, this is Betty, to approve
I'll
it.
second it, but I would like to see a copy of that as well.
Absolutely.
Any other questions or comments? If not, roll call, please.
Robert Beaver,
Yes.
Betty Brusky Malik,
Yes,
Kristen Kraft,
No.
Justin Herder,
Yes.
Richard Murden,
Yes.
Linnea Miller,
yes,
Charles Spargo.
Yes,
Motion carried.
Matt,
All right, Chuck, you're up for informational items.
well, can
Yes.
I ask Matt a question?
Sure, yes.
Matt, in the policies that were in the packet to review, one of them is on spending, that needs board approval, and it says 2,500. Is that dictated, or is that our choice in terms of what that limit is?
Board approval, for board approval, expenditures need to be over $50,000. Unless it's public construction, then it's $25,000, not 2,500.
Oh, okay, I thought I saw 2,500 in the policy.
yeah, so did I, Rick, and I
It
asked
is-
the question if that was accurate.
It is 2,500 in the policy.
Okay, we'll need to update that then. Yep, that would be 25,000 for public construction and 50,000. These are that is, to answer your question, Rick, the FAM is what we follow, and their criteria are board approval for expenditures exceeding $50,000 with the exception of public construction. That is $25,000.
Yeah, I thought that 2,500 was very low.
You guys would have a huge list every month.
Right, yeah, that's what I was afraid of.
I'm wondering if that's directed at something else, but
It is.
It is.
Directed at something else, yeah.
But is
What
it-
you're actually looking, the 2,500 threshold related to bills and payments that you make, or you approve an exhibit B each month, that you receive a separate listing. So while it's a procurement, it's not necessarily related to the procurement for goods and services notation that's made. So there is that differential there that we need to be aware of. The 50,000 and 25,000 that Matt references is something different than the $2,500 threshold that we use for regular payment.
and I think it might reflect whether you get approval before the expenditure is made or approval after the expenditure is made, which is what we're usually doing on the
Correct.
Exhibit B.
Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
Okay, then the next section is informational items, and we've got several items on the agenda, and fortunately I can hand this off to first. I think Greg is going to handle the financial audit update.
Yes, thank you, Chuck. We are progressing through the financial audit for our 1920 year. We have finished all their on-site work. I think they were just finishing up with our last board meeting. And they are currently scheduled to be on site, or in meeting, I should probably say, for December with a board presentation. There has been no, like stated last month at the board meeting, there has been no findings for our audit for the 1920 year. So that is great news. And the one improvement they've looked at us to have is a federal grant policy that we'll be bringing forward at some point in the future, because of the CARES Act as a federal grant.
Okay.
Is that it then, Greg, for the Audit update?
That is it for the audit update then, yes.
Okay, next item is IT systems briefing with Brad Russell. Is he available?
Yes, I am.
Take it away, Brad.
All right. Thank you, Chuck. So I wanted to provide a brief summary of the recent ransomware incident that Midstate experienced. And so with that, I'll start out by what happened. On September 28th, 2020, at approximately noon, the IT department became aware of an unidentified incident that was affecting Microsoft Office documents and other similar files. Within 20 minutes of learning that the encryption was taking place, which means files were not accessible, the following action was taken much simultaneously between IT and ELT. IT technicians immediately took down systems and the internet. IT leadership called DMI to activate our cyber insurance policy. We brought in forensics and legal team for direction and support. ELT executed our emergency response procedures and incident response plan. We communicated the outage to our staff and students via Rave to check the website for more information. The college worked with DMI and their attorneys, Michael, Best, and Friedrich, to bring on resources for forensics, recovery, and restoration assistance. The following Midstate IT information systems were assessed to determine the extent of the incident, and a forensics investigation started immediately by an outside company approved by DMR, and their name was Kroll. Approximately 90 in-house servers were assessed and evaluated. We looked at our offsite server located at Willem, which contains a copy of our Active Directory for authentication purposes. Our website, which is hosted in the cloud, was evaluated. And also we triaged or assessed approximately 1,500 college devices, desktops, laptops, tablets, iPads, and standard classroom technology. Forensics showed the college fell victim to a ransomware attack that encrypted Microsoft Office documents and other similar files through an email attachment that was sent from a business that had been infected recently. Specifically, an employee had opened an email attachment from the infected business from their personal email account on a Midstate device, which then compromised and attacked our IT systems. So what did it do? It encrypted Microsoft Office documents and other similar files, but not system files. Example, system files, configuration files, and so forth. So computers were operable, but not able to access encrypted files. The ransomware is called Defray 777. You may have heard nationally a large number of active ransomware campaigns targeting institutions such as CareerBuilder and Universal Health Services have occurred. In fact, in the Department of Education Financial Aid newsletter on September 28th, there was information regarding multiple ransomware attacks on educational institutions. At this time, forensics has identified that no personal identifiable information was exfiltrated or left Midstate's network. So how did we correct it? As more details emerged, we acknowledged this was going to be a multi-day process to investigate and restore. There were 5.5 days where instruction was altered. Classes were canceled for a day and a half, while campuses remained open without technology. The following 4 days, classes and services were shifted to alternative modes so that 80% of classes could continue until such time we could fully restore our IT systems. During this time, college leadership was very involved in providing multi-day updates with full transparency of the incident, especially ensuring our college community that no personally identifiable information was compromised because that information was housed on our offsite servers. Midstate deployed a cybersecurity tool on each device and server to gather forensics and for containment purposes. We received more information regarding the ransomware and our options. Our first option was the college could pay ransomware of an anticipated $500,000 to $1.5 million with no guarantee of receiving the unencrypting key. A second option would be the college could begin data restoration and recovery processes supported by outside assistance without paying the ransom. The decision was made to forego paying the ransom, and with the clearance from the forensics team and instructions on how to proceed so the integrity of the investigation would not be compromised, we began the recovery and restoration phases. Again, DMI and their legal counsel, Michael Best Friedrich, continued to be involved. What have we done to strengthen against the risks of another attack? In addition to our current firewalls, backups, next generation anti-malware and antivirus software, the employee security awareness training, and the employee phishing campaigns that we conduct, we also implemented these new measures. The installation of carbon black response sensors on all network servers and computers. This allows for 24/7 active monitoring with human intervention in case of nefarious activity. We're also utilizing Duo, which is a two-factor authentication software for all regular employees.
Brad, can you revisit? I didn't understand that first point.
The installation of the carbon black response sensors.
Yeah, carbon black response sensors. Can you put that in layman's terms?
Yep. It's software that was deployed on all of our endpoints, which are servers and desktop computers. And what that software does is it reports out to a 24/7 active monitoring company. And that company has human intervention. So they're watching for behaviors and nefarious activities so that they can put measures in place to stop that or contain any such things that happen in the future. Does that help?
A little.
Like a glorified
but
antivirus
so, you know,
software kind of?
the basic problem of, you know, you get an email with an attachment. How do you ascertain whether that's legitimate or not to whether, you know, you opened it or not?
That's a great question. That's where the employee security awareness training that we conduct is a tool that tries to help employees be able to ascertain whether or not the email and or the attachment is legitimate, you know, and should be opened or not. That training helps them look for things to lessen the likelihood of opening things that may be infected. However, in this case, the you know, it came from a business that was in town, so it looked legitimate. The employee had done business with the business that was infected, and so, you know, they just fell victim to, unfortunately, another company that was attacked.
And just you know, just from a neophyte's perspective, you know, when I'm going to download something or whatever, my scanning system does a scan on it and says, okay, it's safe to proceed. So I'm assuming that's happening, but it's not catching whatever is in that attachment.
Correct. Two things related to that. First, the employee did not download that attachment; they simply opened it. And two, that Defray 77 is malicious to the fact where it actually utilizes acceptable processes on your computer. So in that case, it was not, it would not pick that up. And that is where the carbon black response sensors that we put on our endpoints is an additional tool that, in case the anti-malware, antivirus does not pick it up using signatures, that the carbon black response sensors that we deployed have that human intervention element to it, where they're looking at behaviors stating, even though this behavior or this process is allowed to run, it's doing things and sending information that it shouldn't be. So they can put those measures in place to help try and prevent that in the future.
Thank you.
Yep. So in addition to what we implemented as new measures, we implemented a requirement of a 16-character passphrase for all employees and students. We have the requirement for all employees and students to change their password. And additional firewall logging and prevention measures have been turned on. In addition, we will strengthen our backup system and computer protection software. We reimaged servers, and we will reimage approximately 1,500 mid-state devices as well as provide required employee training to inform, understand, and help prevent future incidents.
And I think it was in the email, but this did not have the potential of coming into our own devices, right? If they're not mid-state devices?
Correct.
Okay.
So what are the costs to the college? At the current time, Mid-State will be responsible for the $25,000 deductible. This protects us from the restoration and data recovery expenses, which to date are up close to $300,000.
Oh my goodness.
Carbon Black's cybersecurity tool services will cost approximately $150,000 for 3 years. That's that Carbon Black response sensor software that I was asked about just a little bit ago. It covers the enhancements to our mid-state backup system, which will cost approximately $100,000. ELT is currently assessing which budget items can be reprioritized to ensure our IT systems are recovered and any necessary enhancements made. The soft costs to the college are still being assessed, but would be employee lost productivity, as well as loss of unrecoverable files and the recreation of such files, which equates to approximately 15 to 20%. In closing, this incident and the recovery of it really took the strength and commitment of many people. It was very unfortunate, but we are now in a place where we can say we will be stronger because of it. I would like to thank everyone who played a role, large or small, in moving us forward together. I want to thank the support of the ELT, the support of academics for their flexibility in their courses and how they offered that, and also the IT team for their continued support.
Thank you, Brad. You said something about 15 to 20% of the files were lost or unrecoverable. Of what type of files, or are you talking about across the entire college system?
Yeah, across the millions of files that we have, there were some files that were encrypted and unrecoverable, because part of the Defray 777 is that it attacks your backup systems as well.
I was wondering why offsite backups weren't available to help out.
Yeah, they did help out. There's two things that really helped out. One was the ability for us to shut down systems, because once they were shut down, it stopped the encryption process. So between that and what we could restore from those servers when they were brought back up, in addition to what we could restore from our offsite backups, we were able to recover most of our data, with the exception of probably 15 to maybe 20%.
And do we have any idea what the impact of the college is going to be of having lost that 15, 20%, and how much of that can be created, and what that time will take to do that?
That is still being ascertained as to how long that will take. We have communicated with those departments or areas that did have a loss in files, and through either sending emails and attachments, we're optimistic that a lot of those things can be recreated, pulling them out of emails, attachments, and things of that nature. But I don't have a definitive answer as to how much or how long that would take to get those rebuilt.
Okay.
Has forensics indicated where this might have come from?
Yeah.
Outside the United States, we were asked to block an IP address of this ransomware where it was trying to send to, and that IP address was in Canada. And that's all we've been notified yet.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Chuck, got anything else?
I think that concludes the Finance and Infrastructure Committee report, unless there's anything else, Greg, that you're aware of?
No, there is not, Chuck. Thank you.
Okay, that's it then, Bob. Thank you.
Betty, you're up. Academic and Student Services.
Good evening, everyone. The Academic and Student Services Committee has only 2 informational items tonight, and Dr. Deb Stencil will do the first one on the uninterrupted education, and then Dr. Mandy Lang will do the K-12 focus during the COVID-19. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Betty, very much. So as Brad just mentioned, the IT system outage that we experienced on Monday, September 28th, brought challenges to all areas of the college. Due to the lack of technology, Midstate canceled classes on Monday afternoon and Tuesday. During this time, the academic team worked together to create a plan for running classes with limited technology. It's a little bit ironic because we've been prepared to always go virtual, and now we're going back to essentially paper and pencil and being in our classrooms without technology. But we were able to run classes the rest of the week with faculty offering traditional in-person classes without the use of technology and online classes with the use of personal phones and computers. Due to these efforts, we were able to offer 72% of scheduled classes on Wednesday, 83% of classes on Thursday, and 93% of classes on Friday. So we were very pleased with the response from our faculty. We continue to stress flexibility and creativity to provide uninterrupted education and to meet student need. Any questions on the academic response?
Very good. Good job.
Okay, thank you.
And I will start on our K-12 efforts with COVID. Since March, when COVID started, our work with our K-12 schools has really had to change. Many of our school districts right now are limiting outside people from coming into the schools, and that includes us and other college representatives. We've made a number of changes to our K-12 plan in response to this, but we do anticipate that there's going to be an impact on our K-12 goals, including likely a decrease to dual credit and possibly our transition rate as well. Although our goal is to maintain, but certainly could see a decrease. One of the big changes that I just wanted to share with you that's kind of an exciting thing because so many things are going virtual, but this one thing we're really trying to keep in person, and it's our program showcase. It's something that we do every year, and we moved this year to an outdoor event, and we're calling it the Tailgate Tour. And it will be happening tomorrow from 3 to 6 p.m. in Wisconsin Rapids. It's an outdoor event that will include some limited interactive activities to make sure that we allow for following COVID guidelines throughout the entire event. We're really excited to see how it goes. And hopefully we can plan something like this, for our spring program showcase as well, although kind of hoping that COVID's done by then, but we'll see. So we're excited to see how it goes, although not so much excited about the weather forecast for tomorrow.
Okay.
Thanks, Mandy.
Thank you.
That concludes.
Justin, I think you're up.
Okay, thanks, Bob. So the Human Resources and External Relations Committee just has one informational item tonight, and that's with Dr. Bobby Damrow.
We had a very fun and engaging activity earlier this month, and a big thank you to Natasha and Student Life. I'm going to give her props. I see she's on the call joining us, as well as the marketing folks. You should find in your packet maybe a Cougar logo or a little label that was sent, compliments of Natasha and Student Life. So let me tell you that we hosted a community naming for our mascot, and we received about 100 suggestions that I shared with you in the past. And then the two finalists kind of went head to head, and we had over 300 votes that were received into the college. And I just wanted to share with you that our Mid-State Cougar, his name is Grit. And I think Angie's gonna pull up a little picture of Grit. As the folks were voting, they were identifying themselves as either a student or a non-student or an alumni. So we had a really nice mix of different folks, but you'll see this is kind of how he spell or how Grit spells his name, and this kind of what you'll see around campus. I can tell you that the name of the individual that submitted the name Grit gets a lifetime of bragging rights. Her name is Christine Smith, and Christine is an MA student from Marshfield, and she had submitted the name because it was important to her. And then you'll see here that Shelley presented her with a box of Cougar merchandise. So it was really a very fun event, and just having one of our students, that from our Marshfield campus kind of submit the name, give the reasons why she thought Grit was important and why Grit was a great name for our mascot. Just a fantastic time. So that really concludes my remarks. I'd love to hear any comments back from you folks. Thank you.
Great name. Thank you.
What was the Cubs name?
We haven't named the Cub yet. So,
oh, that's why I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that'll be another event coming up.
Okay.
She's taking this about as far as she can take it, I think. Okay. Committee of the whole. Dr. Mondike reported out on our dashboard activities. They're very positive. I think we've had progress in nearly every spot you can have. I think the most impressive is the number of people that we've had, the number of classes we've had, and of course, those of us from Adams County are particularly proud of what's going on at the Adams campus. And kudos to Shelley and to Lori. I don't know that we could have expected a whole lot more, especially with this COVID thing going on. So Shelley, if you have some other comments, I'd sure be glad to entertain them for people.
No, I would just thank the board for their support, as we have continued to modify some things at our campuses, and just know that we appreciate that support, and we'll just continue to look for opportunities and work on our areas of gaps. Absolutely. So.
Thank you. Discussion and possible action is Karen and Natasha Miller are up with new diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. Do we have those folks here?
We are here and ready. We're so happy.
How did I miss that, Karen?
I don't know.
Okay.
We're very excited to introduce today kind of a new way where we are doing this important work at Mid-State. So before this summer, Natasha kind of headed up the student diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. So diversity, equity, inclusion, DEI. So if I say DEI, that's what I mean. And I kind of headed up the employee DEI efforts. We had a diversity committee that did some programming. Natasha and I were both part of the system DEI group, but there were a lot of people doing their own thing around this issue. And then a couple of things kind of happened that made us think differently about it. So the system did the system equity report a couple of years ago, but followed that up with asking the colleges to do their own college equity report, which ours was just finished last spring. Last January, we took a team of staff and students down to the WTCS Wisconsin Conference on Race and Ethnicity, and we were really energized from that discussion of things we could do from that knowledge. And then in February, we had our in-service was diversity focused, and it was a very popular really great in-service that focused around DEI issues. So we were kind of building to, we need to do more, we need to do different. And then George Floyd happened. And everybody realized we have to take this a little bit more seriously and do some things differently. So what happened shortly after that is the system, Morna at the system put out some expectations for all 16 colleges. Each college should be looking at these and the system office. The 5 expectations from the system office are sustained conversation on systemic racism and policy reform, focus on equity in student access and success, use data to close equity gaps, review hiring and retention policies, and increase transparency. So that's kind of what our charge from the system office was. And we decided how we were going to meet that. We were going to do things a little differently. So I pulled together what I called a DEI summit on August 7th, not much more than 2 months ago. And everyone invited were people who had a specific part of their specific role in the campus, had some sort of DEI defined responsibility. So our disability coordinator, our Title IX people, counselors, our student life people, all of those were invited, and we had about 20 people come for this DEI summit to talk about how do we do this differently. We needed to, our goal was really a more concerted, coordinated effort to really be all rowing in the same direction. I always tell people, it's like we weren't even throwing spaghetti on the walls, we were throwing all different kind of pasta on the walls. So let's get a little more honed in to just at least throwing one kind of pasta on the wall. So that's where our Equity and Inclusion Task Force was born. And Natasha is going to tell you all about that.
Yeah, so the Equity and Inclusion Task Force, we chose that phrase task force pretty intentionally because it's very action oriented. And so at the summit, we created our group mission, our guiding principles, and then our goals. So the mission that was developed by the task force is that Midstate Technical College strives to cultivate an environment of equity and inclusion. And then the 4 guiding principles for our work are inclusion and acceptance, social justice and empowerment, reflection and transformation, and then shared responsibility and accountability. And so those are our guiding principles. And then the goals that we identified for our group really actually mirror what the WTCS set for goals. And those are the ones that Karen had mentioned. So essentially, we're committed to creating a sustained focus on those 5 areas identified by WTCS. So now that we had our task force, we knew there was a lot to accomplish and that there were probably other folks within the college that were interested in working with us on this endeavor. So with that in mind, we created subcommittees. Each committee is led by a member or 2 of the Equity and Inclusion Task Force, and each committee really focuses in on a different area, although rolling up to the Equity and Inclusion Task Force. So the committees that were identified were the Affirmative Action Committee, which focuses on the college's 5-year affirmative action plan, the Training and Professional Development Committee, which does the planning for the training and professional development of faculty and staff. We have our Events Committee, which plan events and activities, and that's for students, staff, and then also for community members as well. Our Outreach Committee really looks to increase the visibility of our efforts of the college. Research and Development, which really looks to identify the equity gaps at the college and then to update and evaluate our progress towards closing those gaps. And then Student Success, which focuses on creating and maintaining equity in our policies and procedures. And then we also knew that we wanted student voices to be a part of this journey. So a group was also identified, a student group, and that structure really is a student club, and that's led by the student life assistant, Vikram Gill, and then also a co-advisor, Riley Damrow. And so we presented this new structure at our college in-service, and we invited anybody who was interested to join a subcommittee of their choice. And approximately 30 additional staff and faculty outside of those task force members volunteered on various subcommittees. So we are, like Karen said, we're excited to move forward with a more concerted effort and just being able to evaluate and improve where we can.
Yeah, and we're Natasha and I are leading up the task force, and we're really excited about how it's going because we've really created a lot of, the committees have been really passionate, and many of them have met a couple of times and have started doing efforts, and we're really on a roll.
Yep.
Great.
Thank you. Okay. We're at closed session, I guess. Well, I know we are. We need a motion to go into closed session.
Bob, before you would do that, do you want to just have me quickly answer the question that I think you might be wondering, like, how is our staff doing with everything going on?
Yes, please.
Just very, very quickly, just wanted to let you know that I think we're doing as well as probably what you would expect. I was so happy when Karen and Natasha talked about how many people they had kind of step up to be part of things. So we're definitely trying to keep our employees engaged, but we very much talk about COVID. We're kind of all in the storm, and everybody kind of has a different boat, right? So, you know, things really change, I think, for a lot of our staff, really on a weekly basis. If they have maybe a parent they're caring for, if they have maybe a child that's in, you know, the elementary school and now they can't go back to school tomorrow, what does that mean? To, you know, the economics, how could they financially be affected, maybe with just loss of income in some way. So just know we're really trying to be sensitive. We're trying to acknowledge that this is a hard time. We're doing our best to just really keep the morale and the engagement up, but I won't lie, it's been a long journey. And I think, you know, there's still this uncertainty that comes with fear. More and more of our staff, I think Karen would tell you and the COVID team would tell you that they're hearing about someone they love that now is affected in some way with COVID, where maybe 3 months ago, nobody knew anybody that maybe had COVID or there was not any effects. And now with the increase, more and more people are being touched in some way, and that definitely affects everybody in many different ways. So again, we definitely don't have all our staff back. We're still kind of working 50% probably from home. We're continuing to try to do the instruction we can, but just know it's definitely something the COVID team talks about on a weekly basis. So.
Thanks, Shelley. Angie, before you leave, I'll get a hold of you tomorrow afternoon about that computer.
Sounds great, Bob.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion. We go into closed session.
Second, this is Betty.
Roll call, please.
Robert Beaver,
Yes.
Betty Brusky Malik,
Yes.
Griffin Krass,
Yes.
Justin Herder,
Yes.
Richard Murden,
Yes.
Linnea Miller,
Yes.
Charles Spargo.
Yes.
We are in closed session. You need a minute or two, or we can just.
A moment, please.
The thumbs up that we are back, Mike? Not yet. Okay.
Now it's on.
Okay, now we are. Please.
Let me know when you're ready.
Yep, we're ready, Bob.
Okay, the motion to adjourn.
So we're back in open session. We had a vote to do that. That was already taken. So now we're talking about ending the board meeting. Is that correct?
Adjourning the board meeting, yes.
Yep. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hey.
We stand adjourned. We'll talk to you in November 16th. I doubt it'll be live, but hopefully, right?
Always hope.
I think right now what I've heard is people would like to maybe still do virtual, Bob, at least November and December, and then the majority would like to then talk about maybe January. That's what I've heard from most board members. So I think we'll just plan for November, December, if that's okay. Keep in mind, if you ever want to come to campus, you know, we're here, you can do that. But I think right now that's what the majority of the board members have communicated with me. So.
Okay.
And I'm seeing
That's fine with me.
what we'll plan. Okay.
All right, we stand adjourned. We'll see you.
Bye.
Night.
Bye, everybody.
See ya.
Bye.
Goodbye.